It was a cold, moonlit night when hunger finally drove me to do something I never imagined I'd stoop to: stealing food from the table of strangers. My stomach felt like it was devouring itself, and desperation had clouded my judgment. As I reached for a piece of bread, my trembling hands betrayed me. I froze as sharp eyes locked onto mine. "Who are you? And what are you doing at my table?" The voice cut through the silence like a blade. It belonged to Henry, a man whose elegant demeanor intimidated me even before he spoke. I wanted to disappear into thin air, but instead stammered, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean—" My voice trailed off as fear choked my words. My heart pounded violently in my chest, each beat echoing louder than thunder. Henry's gaze lingered on me, not just with curiosity, but with something else, something deeper. That's when I realized his attention wasn't solely on my actions. It shifted to the bruises fading on my wrists. They were remnants of a past I tried desperately to escape, now exposed under the harsh glow of chandeliers. The tension escalated when one of Henry's friends sneered, "What filth is this? A homeless rat daring to touch our food?" His words hit me like daggers, slicing through whatever shred of dignity I had left. But then something unexpected happened. Henry stood up abruptly, his towering figure casting a shadow over his smug friend. "Enough," he snapped, his tone icy yet controlled. "If anyone here is behaving like an animal, it's you." For a moment, the room fell silent except for the faint clinking of silverware against plates. His defense of me created an awkward rift between him and his companions, their glares burning holes into both of us. That night changed everything, or so I thought. Little did I know this encounter would spiral into a series of events far beyond my wildest nightmares or dreams. The night I was caught stealing food at Henry's table, I never imagined that my life would take such an unexpected turn. After the initial shock of being discovered, I prepared myself to leave, assuming that was the end of our encounter. But Henry had other plans. As I tried to slip away unnoticed, he called out to me, his voice firm yet gentle. "Wait," he said, stepping closer. "Do you need a job?" His question caught me off guard. I hesitated, unsure whether this was some cruel joke or another form of humiliation. Henry explained that they were in dire need of a housemaid, especially with the upcoming wedding between him and Lily, a woman whose name alone seemed to carry an air of superiority. From what little I'd heard about her, she was not someone who tolerated competition or affection directed toward Henry from anyone else. Her reputation preceded her: beautiful, wealthy, and notoriously possessive. Still, desperation clouded my judgment, and I nodded weakly, accepting his offer without fully understanding the storm it might unleash. Lily arrived the next morning, her presence commanding attention like a queen surveying her kingdom. She took one look at me and sneered, her perfectly painted lips curling into a disdainful smirk. "What is this?" she demanded, gesturing sharply in my direction as though I were nothing more than a speck of dirt on her pristine shoes. Henry calmly introduced me as their new maid, emphasizing how helpful I had already been during my short time there. But Lily wasn't convinced. Her eyes narrowed, scanning me from head to toe, lingering suspiciously on the bruises still visible on my wrists. "You realize this is reckless, don't you?" she snapped at Henry later when we were alone. "Bringing in some random girl off the streets, what will people say? Do you think your reputation can withstand the gossip?" Her words cut through the room like shards of glass, but Henry didn't flinch. Instead, he stood his ground, his tone unwavering. "My decision isn't up for debate," he replied coldly. She stays. The tension between them crackled like electricity, each word loaded with unspoken resentment. For a moment, I thought Lily might explode, her fist clenched so tightly that her knuckles turned white. But instead, she forced a brittle smile and walked away, leaving behind an atmosphere thick with hostility. As days passed, the friction between Lily and me grew palpable. Every glance she threw my way felt like daggers piercing my skin. Yet despite her animosity, I couldn't help but notice how distant she seemed from Henry. Their interactions lacked warmth, filled instead with clipped sentences and forced pleasantries. It became clear that their relationship wasn't built on love, but rather convenience. Or perhaps something darker I couldn't yet comprehend. Meanwhile, Henry continued to treat me with kindness, often checking in to ensure I was settling in well. He even went out of his way to provide me with extra blankets and meals, insisting I needed to regain my strength after months of hardship. But peace never lasts long. One evening, as I cleaned the dining hall, I overheard fragments of a heated argument between Henry and Lily. "You're making a fool of yourself," Lily hissed, her voice trembling with fury. "Everyone knows why you hired her. Don't act like it's charity." Though I couldn't hear Henry's response, the silence that followed spoke volumes. My heart sank, realizing I had become a pawn in their deteriorating relationship. Little did I know this was only the beginning of a much larger conflict, one that would test not just my loyalty, but also my courage. As the weeks passed, my new life at Henry's house began to take shape. I worked tirelessly, trying to prove my worth and push away the shadows of my past. But no matter how hard I tried, memories of Ben haunted me like a ghost that refused to leave. Night after night, I would lie awake in the small room assigned to me, tears streaming down my face as I relived every moment of pain he had inflicted on me. One evening, as I sobbed quietly into my pillow, I heard a soft knock on the door. It was Henry. His voice was gentle but firm. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern etched across his face. I wanted to tell him everything was fine, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I shook my head, unable to hold back the flood of emotions any longer. He sat beside me, listening intently as I poured out my heart about Ben, about the abuse, and about the fear that still gripped me even now. Henry didn't interrupt. He just listened, his presence offering more comfort than words ever could. That night marked the beginning of something unexpected, a bond between us that grew stronger with each passing day. But peace is fragile, especially when someone like Ben exists in your world. One fateful evening, as I was tidying up the living room, the sound of the front door slamming open sent shivers down my spine. There he was, Ben, standing in the doorway, his eyes blazing with fury. My blood ran cold. "So this is where you've been hiding," he spat, stepping closer. Before I could react, Henry appeared, positioning himself between us. "Who are you, and what do you want?" Henry demanded, his tone icy. Ben smirked, unfazed. "She belongs to me, and if she doesn't come back, I'll make sure neither of you lives to regret it." The air crackled with tension as their confrontation escalated. Ben's threats grew louder, his words laced with venom. Henry remained calm, though I could see the anger simmering beneath his composed exterior. When Ben lunged toward me, Henry acted swiftly, grabbing him by the collar and shouting for the security guards. The struggle that followed felt endless, every second stretching into an eternity. Finally, Ben was dragged out of the house, his parting glare promising revenge. Though he was gone, the fear lingered, casting a dark shadow over what little sense of safety I'd managed to build. Meanwhile, Lily's jealousy reached new heights. She had always disliked me, But now her suspicion turned into obsession. Cameras began appearing in odd places around the house, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. One day, while cleaning Henry's study, I stumbled upon a note hidden under a stack of papers. It read, "Keep an eye on her. Something isn't right." My stomach churned. Was this Lily's doing? Or was there someone else involved? The paranoia consumed me, making it hard to focus on anything else. Despite these challenges, Henry continued to stand by my side. He noticed the changes in my behavior, the way I flinched at sudden noises or avoided certain rooms. Each time he reassured me, reminding me that I was safe here. Yet deep down, I knew the storm wasn't over. Not yet. The night before the wedding was supposed to be a peaceful prelude to Henry and Lily's new chapter. Instead, it unraveled into chaos. I had been plagued by nightmares again, visions of Ben's cruel hands gripping my wrists, dragging me back into the darkness. I woke up gasping for air, tears streaming down my face. Before I could compose myself, Henry appeared in the doorway, concern etched across his features. "Are you all right?" he whispered, sitting beside me on the couch. His arms instinctively wrapped around me as I trembled, trying to calm the storm inside. We didn't notice Lily standing there until it was too late. Her voice cut through the silence like shattered glass. "How dare you!" she screamed, her eyes blazing with fury. "You disgusting hypocrite! All this time you've been sneaking around behind my back." Henry stood up immediately, attempting to explain, but Lily wouldn't listen. "This is over," she spat, throwing the engagement ring onto the floor. "I'm canceling everything. The wedding, our relationship, everything. And mark my words, Henry, I'll make sure you regret this betrayal." With that, she stormed out, leaving an eerie quietness in her wake. Guilt consumed me entirely. How could I have let things spiral so far? In the morning, while everyone else slept, I packed my belongings quietly, leaving behind a letter apologizing for the mess I'd caused. "I never meant to destroy anyone's happiness," I wrote, my hand shaking as ink smeared across the page. "Please forgive me." As I stepped outside, the weight of my decision pressed heavily on my chest, but freedom felt fleeting. Just blocks away, Ben emerged from the shadows, his presence sending chills down my spine. "You thought you could run forever?" he growled, grabbing my arm and pulling me into a dim alley. Panic surged through me as he leaned closer, his breath reeking of alcohol. "You'll pay for leaving me." Just as his fist rose, ready to strike, a familiar voice roared, "Leave her alone!" It was Henry. He charged at Ben, tackling him to the ground before calling security. The fight was brief but intense, every second stretching into eternity. When it ended, Ben was dragged away, cursing under his breath, while Henry pulled me close, his embrace both protective and desperate. After the harrowing encounter with Ben in the alley, my world felt like it was crumbling around me. Henry had saved me once again, but the fear lingered, gnawing at my insides like a relentless predator. That night, as we sat together in his study, his presence both comforting and overwhelming, I knew I couldn't keep hiding the truth anymore. The weight of my past pressed down on me, suffocating and unrelenting. "Henry," I began, my voice trembling, "there's something you need to know." I told him everything. About the years I endured under Ben's cruel grip, the nights filled with terror and pain, and the moment I finally found the courage to escape. I described how I lived on the streets, constantly looking over my shoulder, terrified that he would find me. My voice cracked as I recounted the times his voice haunted my dreams, making sleep feel more like torture than rest. Tears streamed down my face as I admitted how broken I still felt even after all this time. Henry listened intently, his expression shifting from shock to sorrow. When I finished, he reached for my hand, his touch gentle yet firm. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. "I could have helped you." His words cut deep, not because they were harsh, but because they carried the weight of regret, not just for him, but for me too. He blamed himself for not seeing the signs earlier, for not understanding the depth of my suffering. "I should have known," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "I failed you." But I shook my head vehemently. "No, Henry. You've done so much already. Without you, I wouldn't even be here." Still, the guilt in his eyes was unmistakable. The next morning, Henry made a decision that terrified me. "We're going to the police," he announced, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Ben needs to pay for what he's done." Panic surged through me. "What if he comes after me? What if he hurts you?" I pleaded, clutching his arm. But Henry's resolve was unwavering. "I won't let him near you ever again. I promise." His determination gave me strength, though the fear of retaliation loomed large. Meanwhile, Lily reappeared unexpectedly. She knocked on the door late one evening, her usual haughty demeanor replaced by an air of contrition. "Can we talk?" she asked hesitantly, glancing between Henry and me. Reluctantly, I agreed. To my surprise, she didn't lash out or accuse. Instead, she apologized for misunderstanding, for being jealous, and most importantly, for using Henry. "I never loved him," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I only wanted his money, his status, and when I saw how he looked at you—" Her voice trailed off, shame coloring her features. "I realize now how wrong I was. You deserve better than someone like me trying to tear you apart." Her apology caught me off guard. I wanted to hate her, to hold on to the anger she'd stirred within me, but there was sincerity in her words. As she left, I couldn't help but feel a pang of pity for her, a woman who had clung to material wealth instead of seeking genuine connection. Yet her confession also brought clarity. Henry and I had been drawn together not by chance, but by shared vulnerability and honesty. But the storm wasn't over yet. Days later, as Henry filed a report against Ben, news spread quickly. Ben retaliated publicly, threatening both of us in chilling messages left on social media. "You think this is over?" one read. "You'll regret crossing me." Each threat sent shivers down my spine, but Henry refused to back down. "We'll face this together," he vowed, holding me close. His bravery inspired me, but the question remained: could we truly outrun the darkness that followed us? The day Henry officially canceled the wedding was both a relief and a turning point. Despite the backlash from his family, who accused him of throwing away his future for a nobody, and the whispers of society that painted him as reckless and foolish, he stood firm in his decision. "I won't marry someone I don't love," he declared to his parents, his voice unwavering despite their disapproval. "Martha may be broken, but she's worth more than any riches or status Lily could offer." His words silenced the room, though the tension lingered like a storm cloud refusing to dissipate. For me, the guilt weighed heavily. I had never asked for this. For Henry to abandon everything he'd planned for the sake of someone like me. Yet, every time I tried to pull away, he pulled me closer. "You're not alone anymore," He said one evening as we sat together under the dim light of the living room. We'll face whatever comes next, together. His determination gave me strength, but the scars of my past still haunted me. What if I wasn't enough? What if Ben found a way to hurt us again? The final confrontation came weeks later when we arrived at the courthouse where Ben was being tried for abuse and threats against me. As we stepped out into the bright sunlight after the verdict, Henry took my hand firmly in his. The warmth of his grip felt like a shield against the world's cruelty. Reporters swarmed around us, shouting questions about our relationship and the scandal that had unfolded, but Henry ignored them all, his focus solely on me. Are you ready? He asked softly, his eyes filled with hope and resolve. I nodded, though fear still lingered in the corners of my mind. For the first time, however, I allowed myself to believe, truly believe, that maybe fairy tales weren't entirely fictional. Maybe they just needed people brave enough to rewrite them. As we walked away from the courthouse, the sun casting golden rays over us, I realized something profound. Love wasn't about perfection. It was about choosing each other despite imperfections. And in that moment, I knew Henry had made the right choice, not just for himself, but for both of us. Some people leave scars, others leave lessons. Burn and reborn stories that break you, then rebuild you.